People see the billions. They see the rockets, the headlines, the fame, the impossible ideas becoming reality. What they do not see is the man who sat alone, nearly broke, watching everything collapse around him while the entire world prepared to call him a failure. There was a moment when Elon Musk had to make a decision that would either destroy him forever or turn him into one of the most influential entrepreneurs in history. His rockets were exploding. His car company was bleeding money every single day. Investors were disappearing. The media mocked him publicly. Experts said his dreams were impossible. Even people close to him believed he had gone too far. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, when almost every logical reason told him to quit, he kept going. Not because success was guaranteed, not because he felt confident, but because he became obsessed with proving that impossible does not mean impossible forever. This story is not about talent alone. It is about surviving pressure that crushes most people. It is about risking everything when failure looks certain. It is about enduring humiliation, rejection, fear, exhaustion, and still finding a reason to move forward. Before Tesla became the future of electric cars, before SpaceX changed the space industry forever, before the world called him a genius, Elon Musk was just a man trying desperately not to lose everything. And what happened next changed the future of technology forever. In 2008, Elon Musk was running out of time, money, and hope at the exact same moment. Most people have no idea how close he came to total collapse. At that point, both Tesla and SpaceX were falling apart publicly. SpaceX had already suffered multiple rocket failures. Millions of dollars had vanished into explosions broadcast across the internet. Tesla was drowning in production problems and financial losses. Every week brought new headlines predicting the death of his companies. Behind closed doors, the situation was even worse. Elon had poured almost his entire fortune back into his businesses. The money he earned from PayPal was disappearing fast. He was borrowing money just to survive personally, while trying to keep thousands of employees paid. Imagine the pressure for a second. One company failing would already destroy most people emotionally. He was watching two collapse at the same time. Friends warned him to stop. Investors lost confidence. Executives walked away. The media treated him like a delusional billionaire burning cash on fantasy projects. Then came the moment that nearly ended everything. SpaceX had one final rocket launch left before bankruptcy. One more failure, and the company would likely disappear forever. Tesla was also dangerously close to running out of money during the same period. Elon later admitted he believed there was a real chance he would lose everything. And this is where most people misunderstand success. They think extraordinary people move forward because they are fearless. That is not true. Sometimes they move forward while terrified. Sometimes they continue because quitting would hurt even more than failure itself. That final launch became one of the most important moments of Elon Musk's life. Because if it failed, the story you know today would never exist. Long before the billions, before the rockets, before the world knew his name, Elon Musk was just a quiet kid, trying to survive a world that constantly made him feel small. People often look at successful individuals and assume confidence was always part of their identity. For Elon, it was the opposite. His childhood in South Africa was marked by isolation, fear, and emotional distance. At school, he became an easy target for bullies, not once or twice, constantly. There were days when the attacks became so violent that he ended up hospitalized. Kids would beat him until he could barely stand. Humiliation became part of his normal life. Now think about what that does to a child psychologically. When someone grows up feeling unsafe, two things usually happen. They either become emotionally broken by the world, or they develop an almost unnatural tolerance for pain. Elon escaped reality the only way he knew how. Books. He read obsessively. Science fiction, engineering, physics, philosophy. While other kids were trying to fit in socially, he was mentally building worlds inside his imagination. That became his refuge. But there was another side forming quietly beneath the surface. Isolation taught him independence. Pain taught him endurance. Rejection taught him how to survive without approval. Those experiences shaped the mindset people would later mistake for coldness or arrogance. In reality, Elon had spent years learning how to operate emotionally without needing validation from others. and that would become critical later in life. Because when the entire world eventually laughed at his companies, doubted his vision, and predicted his downfall, he had already spent years learning what it felt like to stand alone. Most people break when society turns against them. Elon became familiar with that feeling early. What nobody realized at the time was that the bullied kid sitting alone with books in South Africa was slowly developing the mental resilience that would one day allow him to survive failures that would destroy almost anyone else. And soon, that lonely teenager would make a decision that changed the course of his entire life forever. As Elon Musk grew older, one feeling became impossible to ignore. He did not belong where he was. South Africa during the 1980s felt unstable, violent, and limiting to someone obsessed with the future. Elon looked around and saw a life he did not want. He feared becoming trapped inside an environment where survival mattered more than innovation. But leaving was not simple. He had no powerful connections waiting for him overseas, no guaranteed opportunities, no clear roadmap, just an idea burning in his mind that somewhere beyond South Africa, a bigger future existed. That belief became an obsession. While most people around him focused on realistic careers and safe decisions, Elon was already thinking about humanity, technology, space exploration, and the future of civilization itself. Even at a young age, his ambitions sounded disconnected from reality, and people treated them that way. Dreamers are usually mocked before they are admired. So Elon made a choice that looked irrational to almost everyone around him. He left South Africa and moved to Canada with little money, uncertainty everywhere, and no guarantee that anything would work out. Imagine the emotional weight of that decision, leaving behind familiarity, leaving family, leaving certainty, walking directly into the unknown with nothing except conviction. Most people wait until conditions feel safe before changing their lives. That moment almost never comes. Elon understood something very early. If he stayed comfortable, his future would remain small. From Canada, he eventually moved to the United States, the place he believed gave impossible ideas the highest chance of survival. He was not chasing comfort. He was chasing proximity to opportunity. And this is where the story becomes dangerous, because ambition sounds inspiring until real sacrifice enters the picture. Once Elon arrived in America, reality hit hard. There was no glamorous beginning waiting for him. No instant success, no shortcuts, only pressure, uncertainty, and a level of struggle most people never associate with billionaires. What happened next would push him into one of the hardest periods of his life. When people imagine the beginning of Elon Musk's journey, they picture genius, opportunity, and rapid success. The reality looked nothing like that. After arriving in the United States, Elon Musk lived with a level of intensity that most people would never tolerate for long. Every day became a fight between survival and ambition. There were moments when he barely had enough money to live comfortably. Instead of renting expensive apartments or chasing status, he focused every ounce of energy on building something that could change his future forever. When Elon and his brother created their first startup, Zip2, life became brutally repetitive. Work, stress, no sleep, more work. He slept inside the office because it saved money and wasted less time commuting. He showered at public facilities. Some nights blurred directly into mornings because he refused to stop working. Think about how extreme that mindset is. Most people want success, but they still protect comfort at all costs. Elon was already sacrificing comfort completely before anyone believed in him, and there was no guarantee any of it would pay off. That is the part people forget. When someone becomes successful, the struggle suddenly looks heroic in hindsight. But during those years, Elon had no proof that his sacrifices would lead anywhere meaningful. Investors doubted him. Competition was growing. The internet industry itself was still unpredictable. One wrong move could have destroyed everything before it even started. But pressure did something powerful to him. Instead of making him retreat, it sharpened his obsession. While others chased short-term rewards, Elon became consumed by scale. He did not just want to create a business. He wanted to build systems capable of transforming entire industries. That level of ambition made him difficult to understand. It also made him impossible to ignore. Eventually, Zip2 was sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. For the first time in his life, Elon Musk had real money. Most people would have stopped there. They would have enjoyed the victory, protected the wealth, and avoided unnecessary risk. But Elon was about to make a decision that shocked almost everyone around him, because becoming rich was never the final goal. When Elon Musk became a millionaire after selling Zip2, his life changed overnight. For the first time, he could buy almost anything he wanted. Luxury, freedom, security, recognition, the kind of financial success most people spend their entire lives chasing had suddenly arrived while he was still young. And yet, something felt wrong. Instead of slowing down and enjoying the victory, Elon became restless. This is where his mindset separated itself from normal ambition. Money was never enough to satisfy him, because money itself was not the mission. What truly drove him was the need to build something massive, something capable of reshaping the future. That obsession became stronger the moment he realized wealth alone brought no real sense of fulfillment. So while most successful entrepreneurs protect their fortune carefully after their first win, Elon did the exact opposite. He risked it again. He founded XCOM, an online financial company that many people considered absurd at the time. Remember, this happened when trusting banks on the internet still sounded dangerous to millions of people. The idea was ahead of its time, and being ahead of your time often feels identical to being wrong. People questioned his judgment immediately. Investors worried about his aggressive decisions. Internally, tensions grew fast. Elon pushed people hard, demanded impossible speed, and constantly challenged conventional thinking. That created results. It also created enemies. Eventually, XCOM evolved into what the world would later know as PayPal. But behind the scenes, the company was becoming a battlefield filled with power struggles and growing distrust. Then came one of the most humiliating moments of Elon's early career. While traveling, he was removed as CEO. Imagine building something from the ground up, sacrificing your life for it, only to watch control slip out of your hands while the world questions your leadership. For many people, that experience would destroy confidence permanently. For Elon, it created something else, a deeper hunger, a stronger need to prove himself, a dangerous willingness to bet even bigger next time. And after PayPal was eventually sold for billions, Elon Musk stood at a crossroads that would define the rest of his life. He could retire wealthy and live comfortably forever. Instead, he chose a path that almost guaranteed suffering. From the outside, PayPal looked like a massive success story. The company was growing fast. Money was flowing in. The tech world was paying attention. But behind closed doors, the environment had become toxic, exhausting, and deeply personal for Elon Musk. Most people think the hardest part of building a company is creating the product. In reality, managing people, egos, pressure, and power struggles can destroy a business long before the market does. Inside PayPal, conflicts exploded constantly. Executives disagreed over strategy. Leadership battles intensified. Trust inside the company started collapsing. Elon's management style made the situation even more volatile. He pushed aggressively, demanded speed, and constantly challenged his team to think bigger than they believed possible. Some admired that intensity. Others saw it as chaos. Then came the moment that blindsided him. While Elon was away on a trip, company executives moved against him and removed him as CEO. Think about that psychologically. The company he helped build, the vision he fought for, the sleepless nights, sacrifices, and stress. Suddenly, he was no longer in control. Humiliation hit hard. Publicly, people questioned whether he was truly capable of leading major companies. Internally, the experience left emotional scars that would shape the way he approached leadership for years afterward. But the damage was not just professional. During that same period, Elon's personal life also faced growing instability. Pressure from work consumed nearly every part of his existence. Relationships became strained. Stress became constant. Success was arriving financially, but emotionally life was becoming heavier. And here is the dangerous part about ambition nobody talks about. The bigger the dream becomes, the more isolated a person can feel. People celebrate outcomes, They rarely see the emotional cost paid behind the scenes. When PayPal was eventually sold to eBay for billions, Elon received a fortune large enough to disappear from the business world forever. Most rational people would have protected that money carefully after everything he had experienced. Instead, Elon made the most irrational decision of his life. He decided to risk almost all of it on industries where failure rates were brutally high. Not one industry, two. And both decisions sounded completely insane at the time. After the sale of PayPal, Elon Musk had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. No stress, no financial pressure, no need to prove anything to anyone. He could have disappeared into luxury like countless wealthy entrepreneurs before him. Instead, he made a decision so extreme that even close friends believed he was making a catastrophic mistake. Elon took the fortune he earned from PayPal and poured almost all of it into ideas that most experts considered impossible. Electric cars, private space exploration, solar energy. Today, those industries sound revolutionary. Back then, they sounded ridiculous. The automotive industry was dominated by giant corporations with decades of power and resources. The space industry belonged almost entirely to governments and massive defense contractors, and Elon wanted to compete against both. People did not see bravery in that decision. They saw recklessness. Investors warned him. Business leaders laughed at him. The media treated him like another rich entrepreneur disconnected from reality. But Elon believed something most people could not understand. He believed the future could be engineered. That belief became the foundation of Tesla and SpaceX. And he did not invest cautiously. He invested obsessively. Almost every dollar he had went back into the mission. He was not building companies as side projects. He was gambling his entire life on changing industries that historically crushed newcomers. That level of risk created unbelievable pressure. If Tesla failed, he would lose millions. If SpaceX failed, he would lose millions more. If both failed at the same time, his entire fortune could disappear completely. And that possibility became terrifyingly real, because soon the failures started arriving one after another. SpaceX rockets exploded publicly. Tesla struggled with production disasters. Cash vanished faster than anyone expected. Suddenly, Elon was no longer viewed as a visionary entrepreneur. He was becoming a symbol of failure. And the next chapter of his life would test him in ways even he never imagined. Building rockets sounds impressive when it works. When it fails, it becomes one of the most brutal public humiliations imaginable. That was the reality Elon Musk faced during the early years of SpaceX. Every launch carried enormous pressure, years of engineering, millions of dollars, the reputation of the company itself, all placed on top of a single rocket. And then the explosions started. The first launch failed, then another failed, then another. Each disaster burned money, credibility, and confidence at the same time. Videos of exploding rockets spread everywhere online, while critics mocked Elon relentlessly. Experts publicly declared SpaceX dead. Competitors laughed. Media outlets framed the company as an arrogant billionaire fantasy collapsing in real time. Imagine watching the world celebrate your failures while knowing your company is running out of money. That pressure became almost unbearable. Inside SpaceX, employees worked under constant fear that every launch could be the last. Engineers sacrificed sleep, relationships, and stability, trying to solve problems most people in the world could barely understand. But the deeper the crisis became, the more obsessed Elon grew. Most people see repeated failure as proof they should stop. Elon interpreted failure differently. To him, every explosion contained data. Every mistake contained information. Every setback became part of the path forward. That mindset sounds inspiring now because we already know how the story ends. Back then, it looked insane. The financial damage was becoming catastrophic. Elon was pouring more and more personal money into SpaceX, while Tesla was simultaneously struggling to survive. Both companies were bleeding cash at the exact same time, and then came the breaking point. SpaceX had enough resources left for only one final launch attempt before likely bankruptcy. One. If the next rocket failed, thousands of jobs could disappear overnight. Elon's reputation could collapse permanently. Years of sacrifice would vanish in front of the entire world. The pressure surrounding that final launch was almost impossible to comprehend, because this was no longer about ambition. It was survival. While SpaceX was fighting for survival in the sky, Tesla was collapsing on the ground, and for Elon Musk, the pressure became almost inhuman. Most people do not understand how fragile Tesla was during its early years. Today, the company looks unstoppable. But there was a period when bankruptcy felt almost guaranteed. Production problems spiraled out of control. Costs exploded. Deadlines failed repeatedly. Employees burned out under impossible expectations. At one point, Tesla was losing massive amounts of money every single week. Investors started panicking. Critics attacked Elon constantly. Headlines predicted the company's death almost daily. The worst part was that Elon had already invested nearly everything he had left. This was no longer business strategy. This was personal survival. He later admitted there were moments when he genuinely believed both Tesla and SpaceX could die together. Imagine carrying that reality every single day while thousands of employees depend on your decisions. Most leaders break under pressure like that. Some become paralyzed. Others start protecting themselves emotionally. Elon did the opposite. He became even more extreme. He slept inside Tesla factories, worked endless hours, micromanaged production problems personally, pushed teams beyond what many thought was humanly sustainable. To outsiders, it looked obsessive. Inside Tesla, it felt like war. And then came one of the darkest moments of all. As the financial crisis worsened globally in 2008, raising money became nearly impossible. Investors disappeared. Fear spread everywhere. Tesla was dangerously close to running out of cash completely. The company was approaching the edge. One failed deal, one delayed investment, one more major mistake. That was all it would take. And during those terrifying days, Elon faced a decision that revealed exactly who he truly was under pressure. Because when everything around him started collapsing, he refused to save himself first. He chose to keep betting on the mission. At some point, people stopped asking whether Elon Musk was talented. The real question became something far more unsettling. How was he still going? By the time Tesla and SpaceX were both hanging near collapse, Elon was operating under levels of pressure that would emotionally destroy most people. Constant criticism, financial chaos, public humiliation, sleep deprivation, fear of losing everything. And yet, he kept moving forward. To understand that, you have to understand the psychology behind obsession. Most people are motivated by rewards, money, comfort, recognition, stability. Elon seemed driven by something completely different. He became emotionally attached to the mission itself. That changes everything. When a person works only for rewards, failure becomes a reason to stop. But when someone connects their entire identity to a mission, quitting starts to feel like psychological death. That is why Elon continued risking everything even when logic suggested retreat. He was no longer chasing success alone. He was defending a vision of the future he believed had to exist. And that level of conviction comes with consequences. People around him described periods where he barely disconnected from work mentally. Problems followed him everywhere. Conversations revolved around engineering, production, survival, innovation. Rest became secondary, balance became irrelevant. The deeper the crisis grew, the more intense he became. Most people interpret confidence as calmness, but Elon's confidence often looked chaotic. He doubted himself, he felt fear, he experienced exhaustion. The difference was that fear never gained enough control to stop his actions. That is an important distinction. Courage is not the absence of pressure. It is movement despite pressure. And during those brutal years, Elon developed an almost dangerous tolerance for pain, uncertainty, and risk. The repeated exposure to failure started changing the way he reacted emotionally to setbacks. Loss stopped shocking him. Criticism stopped controlling him. Chaos became normal, but there was another side to that mindset few people discuss openly. The same obsession helping him survive was also beginning to consume his personal life, relationships, and emotional stability in ways that would soon become impossible to ignore. There is something most people never recover from: public failure. Failing privately already hurts. But failing while millions of people watch, criticize, mock, and celebrate your downfall creates a completely different level of psychological pressure. And Elon Musk experienced that pressure constantly. During the hardest years of Tesla and SpaceX, the media attacked him relentlessly. Articles questioned his intelligence, leadership, sanity, and business decisions almost daily. Television hosts mocked his ideas publicly. Financial experts predicted bankruptcy repeatedly. Internet memes turned his failures into entertainment. To the outside world, Elon looked like another arrogant entrepreneur burning through money while chasing impossible fantasies. And the humiliations kept coming. Rocket explosions became viral content. Tesla delays became headlines. Interviews sometimes turned awkward or confrontational. Every mistake felt amplified globally. Most people eventually break when criticism becomes that intense. Why? Because humans naturally crave social approval. We want acceptance, we want validation, we want reassurance that we belong. Elon slowly trained himself to operate without those things. That does not mean criticism stopped hurting him. It means he stopped allowing it to control his direction. In fact, something unusual started happening psychologically. The more people doubted him, the more determined he became. Humiliation became fuel. Every article predicting failure strengthened his obsession with proving people wrong. Every public attack reinforced the idea that revolutionary ideas are almost always rejected before they are accepted. And history supports that pattern. The world often calls visionaries irrational right before calling them revolutionary. Elon understood this deeply. That is why criticism rarely pushed him backward. It pushed him harder. But there is a dangerous side to using pressure as motivation. Eventually, the body and mind begin paying a price for living in constant battle mode. And behind the headlines, behind the ambition, behind the image of unstoppable confidence, Elon Musk was beginning to reach a level of exhaustion that could no longer stay hidden. By the time Tesla and SpaceX began surviving their darkest years, people started seeing Elon Musk as unstoppable. What they did not see was the damage accumulating underneath. Success has a hidden cost few people talk about honestly. The larger the mission becomes, the more a person can slowly disappear inside it. Elon was no longer working hard occasionally. Pressure had become his permanent reality. Weeks blurred together. Sleep became inconsistent. Stress became constant. Personal relationships suffered under the weight of endless responsibility. Employees described periods where Elon worked at levels that seemed almost impossible to sustain physically. He pushed himself relentlessly because he believed slowing down could destroy everything he had sacrificed to build. And in many ways he was right. One weak quarter could trigger panic. One failed launch could collapse confidence. One production disaster could threaten survival again. That fear never fully disappeared. Most people imagine success creates peace. For Elon, success created even bigger expectations. The companies grew. The public attention intensified. The stakes became global. Now millions of people watched every decision he made. Governments paid attention. Investors monitored every statement. Critics searched constantly for signs of weakness or failure. Living under that level of pressure changes a person. At times, Elon appeared emotionally exhausted during interviews. There were moments when the strain became visible in his voice, facial expressions, and behavior. The image of the fearless billionaire started revealing cracks underneath. And this is what makes his story more complex than people realize. He was not simply building companies. He was sacrificing parts of himself to keep those companies alive. That sacrifice included emotional stability. It included peace. It included normalcy. Because once someone becomes consumed by changing the future, ordinary life often stops existing the way it does for everyone else. But despite the exhaustion, despite the criticism, despite years of pressure that would have destroyed most people mentally, something incredible was beginning to happen. The world was slowly starting to realize Elon Musk might actually succeed. For years, people treated Elon Musk like an unrealistic dreamer, chasing fantasies too ambitious to survive reality. Then everything started changing. The final rocket launch that could have ended SpaceX succeeded. After multiple humiliating failures, after millions of dollars vanished into explosions, after critics publicly declared the company finished, SpaceX finally reached orbit successfully. That moment changed everything, not just financially, psychologically. Because suddenly the impossible no longer looked impossible. Then came something even bigger. NASA awarded SpaceX a major contract worth billions of dollars. The same company once mocked as reckless was now being trusted by one of the most respected space organizations in the world. Think about how dramatic that shift was. The industry that laughed at Elon now needed him. At the same time, Tesla slowly began proving its critics wrong too. The company survived the financial crisis. The Roadster gained attention. Electric vehicles stopped looking like weak experiments and started looking like the future. Public perception began shifting rapidly. People who once called Elon delusional started calling him visionary. Media outlets that predicted collapse suddenly celebrated innovation. Investors who once doubted him now wanted access. This happens constantly in history. The world resists radical ideas first. Then it rewards the people who survive long enough to prove those ideas right. And Elon had survived. Not because the journey became easier, not because fear disappeared, but because he endured long enough for reality to catch up with his vision. That transformation changed his reputation permanently. He was no longer simply another entrepreneur from Silicon Valley. He became a symbol of extreme ambition itself. But what made Elon Musk truly different was not just surviving failure. It was the philosophy he developed because of failure. A philosophy that would eventually shape every company, every decision, and every risk he took afterward. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid failure. Elon Musk built his entire philosophy around going directly through it. That mindset sounds strange until you understand the environments he chose to enter. In industries like rockets, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and space exploration, innovation does not happen carefully. Progress comes from experimentation, mistakes, crashes, and constant adaptation. Elon learned that lesson brutally. Every exploded rocket taught SpaceX something engineers could not learn from theory alone. Every production disaster inside Tesla exposed weaknesses that forced the company to evolve faster. Pain became information. That is why Elon stopped seeing failure as proof of weakness. To him, failure became evidence that real limits were being tested, and this is where his mindset separates itself from average thinking. Most people only act when success feels likely. Elon often moved forward even when failure looked probable, because he believed stagnation was more dangerous than embarrassment. Think about how unusual that mentality is. Society trains people to protect their image carefully. Avoid mistakes. Avoid criticism. Avoid looking foolish. But revolutionary breakthroughs rarely emerge from safety. They emerge from repeated attempts, public setbacks, and the willingness to endure humiliation longer than other people can tolerate. That became Elon's competitive advantage. While competitors feared failure emotionally, he normalized it psychologically, not because failure felt good, not because losing became easy, but because he accepted something most people resist. Temporary failure is often the price of extraordinary achievement, and once someone truly internalizes that idea, fear loses much of its control. That does not guarantee success. It guarantees resilience. And resilience became the foundation of everything Elon Musk eventually built. Because in the end, rockets, factories, and billion-dollar companies were never the most important part of his story. The most important part was what failure transformed him into. When people talk about Elon Musk today, they usually focus on the outcomes, the billions, the companies, the influence, the fame. But none of those things explain why his story continues to fascinate millions of people around the world. What truly makes his journey unforgettable is the fact that he survived moments that should have destroyed him completely. There were easier paths available, safer paths, comfortable paths. He rejected all of them. Again and again, Elon chose uncertainty over security, risk over comfort, possibility over fear, and that decision changed not only his own life, but entire industries that many people believed could never change. That is the deeper lesson hidden inside his story. The future is often built by people willing to look irrational long before they look successful. Most individuals quit when pressure becomes unbearable. They stop when criticism intensifies. They retreat when failure becomes public. Elon kept moving, not because he always knew he would win, not because he was fearless. He kept moving because he became willing to endure pain longer than most people could endure doubt. And that is what separates extraordinary people from ordinary ones. The ability to survive the fire without abandoning the mission. Every rocket explosion, every sleepless night, every public humiliation, every moment standing near financial ruin slowly forged the mindset that eventually built companies capable of reshaping the modern world. That is why his story matters far beyond business. It is not simply about becoming rich, it is about refusing to let failure define the final chapter of your life. Because history rarely remembers the people who played safely. It remembers the people who risked everything on a vision nobody else could see. And whether people admire Elon Musk or criticize him, one truth is impossible to deny. He survived the collapse that would have ended almost anyone else, and because of that he changed the future forever.